What's up, everybody? I'm David Hain. Welcome to episode 101 of the A to D from Addict to Disciple podcast. I want to thank everyone who sent messages in response to last week's episode on shame. As a result, I'll be digging into this topic of shame a bit deeper today and in some future podcasts. If you have any thoughts, ideas, or reactions, do like all these other guys did last week and send me a message by email at davidfromatod@gmail.com or go to my website www.fromatod.org and click on the contact page, or you can follow me on Instagram at davidfromatod. When we come back, we'll get into this episode entitled Accept the Unacceptable. Welcome back to episode 101 of the A to D from Addict to Disciple podcast entitled Accept the Unacceptable. This episode is for two key audiences. The first group is really those who find it difficult to accept the things we've done because we feel that they were unacceptable for us to do. And the second group is those who feel that they are the victims or the wounded parties as a result of the behavior of someone you love. And to both groups, I want to say right up front, until we learn to accept the unacceptable, we're no good for ourselves or for our friends and family. When asked what is the most unacceptable thing you've done in your life, the most common answer that people say is, and I quote, failing the people you love and who love you. Pshaw. The most unacceptable thing you've done is failing other people who you love or people who love you. Can you see how this fuels that shame and guilt, that haunting shame that we spoke about in last week's episode? And it makes it difficult or almost impossible to forgive ourselves. On top of this, often those we love that we feel we have failed refuse to forgive us. Or maybe they say they forgive us, but say they have lost trust. And therefore, they keep piles and piles of consequences upon us. And this just becomes a heavy burden that we feel will never end. Pshaw, what a place to be stuck. And when we're stuck in this place, we lose sight of the fact that, hey guys, we're all a work in progress. And that reminds me of the song by Mary J. Blige entitled Work in Progress. Here's some of the lyrics. I got the love from my fans that adore me, and I'm grateful, and I thank you so very much. But my love for myself is lacking a little bit, just a little bit. And I can admit that I'm working on me, staying faithful. And what I'm trying to say is, just like you, sometimes I get down. Sometimes I just want to cry. Sometimes I get depressed. And just like me, trying to be complete, just understand we're all a work in progress. Life can be difficult. No one promised that it would be sunshine all the time. Sunshine all the time. Some pain is guaranteed, but it ain't impossible. You can find joy, you see. Took me a while, but I finally did. Open your eyes, and you will see I'm just like you, a work in progress. Powerful words in that song. And I think that involves learning to admit that I'm not okay, and that's okay. I can't meet everyone's expectations. But in this honesty, how can we still learn to accept the unacceptable in our past? Well, You see, I think it's necessary to figure this out. It's a reality of life that, we've done some things that are unacceptable. And psychologist Dr. Marcia M. Linehan has several suggestions for us as we move to what she calls radical acceptance. First, Dr. Linehan says, observe that you are questioning or fighting reality. That you're stuck with it shouldn't be this way, so I don't have to accept it. And she says, for the second step, remind yourself that the unpleasant reality is just what it is and cannot be changed. So this is reaching that point where you say, this is what happened. I can't change it. Begin to think like the Serenity Prayer and accept the things you cannot change. And the third step that Dr. Linehan points out is remind yourself that there are causes for the reality. Acknowledge that some sort of history led up to this moment. So begin to work with your coach or counselor or sponsor or mentor and look at how this happened and say, begin to plot it out and say, this is how it happened. And I think when we put these things together, yes, I agree, it shouldn't be this way. But this is what happened, and this is how it happened. We can really begin to get to this level of radical acceptance. And radical acceptance is defined as when you stop fighting reality. You stop responding with impulsive or destructive behaviors when things aren't going the way you want them to, and you let go of bitterness that may be keeping you trapped in a cycle of suffering. But I guess the question is, what makes acceptance such a bitter pill or a difficult pill to swallow? Is it the pain? Is it the wound that caused the pain or the wound we've caused others? Is it the feeling of disappointment? Or is it flat out judgment of our past behavior, that we didn't meet the expectations we had for ourselves or what other people expected of us? Paul Harrison, a mindfulness expert and founder of thedailymeditation.com, describes mindfulness as the practice of being aware of the present moment and without judgment. And he says this is one of the keys to mastering acceptance. It's that ability to be non-reactive to people, to events, and to our own thoughts and feelings. You get that? Finding that space of contemplation, finding that space of mindfulness or meditation or quiet time, whatever you call it, where you can look at your emotions, look at the reactions that you've made to things that just are and just were, and be able to move forward as you process your own thoughts and feelings. Remember, radical acceptance is about acknowledging reality, not liking it or not contesting it either. Once you acknowledge what's really happened, what really is happening, you can change it and start to heal. Tara Brach, an American psychologist and author, wrote in her book Radical Acceptance, and I quote, "The boundary to what we can accept is the boundary to our freedom." Can you hear that? The area that we cannot accept, that we cannot radically accept, even though it's unacceptable in our mind, becomes a boundary in the amount of freedom we can walk in. It's like our inability to accept the unacceptable is the same as locking yourself in a prison cell. And when we find ourselves locked inside these self-created boundaries, we are truly stuck just like it was a prison. We may want to change. We may make several attempts at trying to change. But each time we try results in another failure. American psychologist Carl R. Rogers wrote, and I quote, "The curious paradox is that when I accept myself just as I am, then I can change." Can you hear his words? This is powerful. When you accept yourself just as you are, that is the key to unlocking your door to change. That is your key to unlocking that prison door that has created artificial boundaries to your life and growth. Epictetus, the Greek philosopher who died in 125 AD, wrote, and I quote, "Freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control." This is deep. It's won. Freedom is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control. This quote says to me that even if you're struggling to accept yourself or forgive yourself, if you can accept that changing the past is beyond your control and then disregard focusing on those failures of the past, you will find freedom in the future. Buddha once wrote, and I quote, "Holding on to anger is like grasping a hot coal with the intent of throwing it at someone else. You are the one who gets burned." That's a powerful picture for me, and those of you who are regular listeners know that I'm a picture guy. So I want to ask you, what anger, what frustration, what unforgiveness, what lack of acceptance are you holding on to? Can you see, as Buddha wrote, that it's like you're holding on to a hot coal that's burning you up? And I want to expand on this and say it's not only like a hot coal burning you up, but the fact that you're holding on to it gives that hot coal life, and it will never burn out. It was the renowned Swiss psychiatrist Carl Jung who taught us that, quote, "Whatever you resist persists." Do you get that? It means that the more you resist anything, the more you hold on to that hot coal, the more you bring that on yourself, and the more you give that very thing you're resisting life to have control over you. Sure. Acceptance paves the way to true freedom, to lasting happiness, and to peace. When you are able to value yourself and others unconditionally, you embrace everything that is good in you and in others, as well as the not so good and the not so perfect. So I ask you, what are you embracing? What are you holding in your grasp? Here's 3 points I want you to look at as sort of a self-check on radical acceptance. And I urge you to jot down these questions and list out your answers to see if you truly have begun to accept the unacceptable in your life. Number 1, what are the realities that you know you were refusing or you're still refusing to accept? Number 2, what are the behaviors that you're doing because of not accepting the unacceptable? So, yes, straight out, what are you doing? What choices are you making that would be different if you began to accept these unacceptable things? And number 3, how do you feel or experience the pain of not accepting the unacceptable? So are you feeling or experiencing that burning coal burning you? List out your thoughts and feelings about this. In closing, I'd like to share a poem. And this poem reminds us that This change of acceptance may not happen overnight, but our decision to begin the journey of accepting the unacceptable can begin today. It's a poem written by D. Daffodil, and I found it on poemhunter.com. It's entitled Acceptance. Here goes. Accepting oneself takes time. Learning to truly love oneself a bit longer. Rewriting all the negative scripts developed over years can only be done step by step, day by day, and certainly in a loving way. What a good poem to close with. Are you willing to realize that it's going to take time? Because in accepting the unacceptable, you're learning to truly love yourself. And you have to rewrite all of your negative scripts that you're grasping tightly like that burning coal, and begin that step-by-step, day-by-day journey in a loving way. Thanks for listening to this episode of the A to D from Addict to Disciple podcast. If you enjoy these podcasts, please share the link with your friends. If you'd like to support our work with people caught in the snare of addiction, homelessness, or incarceration anywhere around the world, click on the support link in this episode's description. Your donation of any amount could change a life. Tune in Monday for our next episode, and as always, stay safe and stay strong.